Hey y'all, it's Kiana from Dark Sugar Podcast, your host. Going through the most. I'm just kidding, I'm so dramatic. But this episode is on my inner child healing journey, the aspects of it and what I've learned. And it's really funny because the theme of me being very complex and intricate and deep and multifaceted and not just like nice is coming into play. So that's, that ties into the title of Peeling Back the Layers. I've been truly feeling like this inner child healing journey of me really tapping into this part of me that I've abandoned and since then have been afraid of for such a long time. And for those of you that follow me, we had such a good session, Joy from Find More Joy. I'm obsessed with her. Please follow Find More Joy on Instagram. She is a Black therapist stationed in Ohio, but she is virtual and her energy can come through the phone like a motherfucker. And she really helped me see that I was looking at my inner child from just like this tunnel view, this harsh view, this like, I don't know, I wasn't even seeing my inner child in its full capacity. So I just wanted to really tap in because my healing journey has been, so many themes come to mind when I think about my healing journey. We could go so many directions. We could talk about emotional abuse, realizations, ego deaths of it all. I've even gone into talking about my inner critic. But I just wanted to focus on my inner child today because I feel like, okay, so let me start from the beginning. I had my spiritual awakening / ego death 2 years ago. So it was in 2020. And I just remember... Oh, wait, no, sorry. It was in 2021. I'm like jumping ahead. That didn't even sound right. I'm like 2020. Like I was still doing fuck shit in 2020. Okay, 2021. And so, wait, it was last year? My dates are all fucked up, you guys. Oh, I hate this. No, it was in 2020. Okay, thank you. And it was... My inner child definitely was the first layer of my ego death, spiritual awakening, because I've been running I've been running from neglecting my inner child for years. And I have been friends with people who have done the same thing and who are actively doing the same thing, like neglecting their inner child, doing a lot of projecting, a lot of sleepwalking. That's what I call it, when you're just rocking around the world, like not really aware of what you're doing, not really trying to like actively grow and be better every day. You're just kind of like react. You're just kind of like a victim to your circumstance and your environment. I don't know. I just call it sleepwalking. So I was just sleepwalking for a while, neglecting my inner child. I was running from my inner child by really what I was actively doing was I really craved companionship and working together with people and being in company with people. So in turn, I was just like over people's houses all the time, always with somebody, whether it was my partner, my friends, a friend's house, a family member's house. Like I just felt like I was never home. And I remember the circumstances surrounding my ego death when the dark night of the soul moment I had was when I had to kind of sit. I described it to my mom as me and my shadow in the room together for the first time. But what it was really like was almost like me and my inner child in a room for the first time together. Me and all these parts of myself, I should say. But in relating to my inner child was very... when I close my eyes and think of little Kiana, she is very small and scared. No one really knows how scared she is, but she is so scared. And I'm just looking so outside of myself. And I've been doing that for so long that I literally did not have time to develop that little Kiana. It was literally like I was frozen in time, you guys. It was literally like I'm picturing myself kind of like 7 years old. Like I kind of just stopped around 7. And I feel like that's when the real like height of my trauma kicked in. So that's related to that too. But my inner child, she's so sweet, so innocent. She's very scared and confused. And in my adult life, I've been in a lot of situations, usually relating to relationships or something of the sort, where my inner child will pop out and I'll have this crazy ass, huge, dramatic reaction to something. And I'm like, whoa, like, what was that? And usually it's because my inner child is feeling threatened, or a need that has been so long unmet is being triggered in that moment for me to tend to. And lately it's been by me literally being by myself, taking time learning about myself. I've learned so much about myself since I've stopped a lot of codependency patterns. The first one, just like literally not going over people's houses that much. I literally stopped. It was like I went from one extreme to the other. Like I used to go over people's houses all the time. And then all of a sudden I'm alone in my room, kind of vibing low key, realizing that my inner child, she wants to, oh my God, I almost started to cry. Oh my God. Okay. So I almost started to cry because the realization I had is that my inner child / me, I kind of just want to play in my room by myself. I'm that kid that can play alone in my room with my toys and just vibe. And I feel like I didn't get to do that. I'm being so dead ass, you guys. Like, I feel like I didn't get to do that enough in this metaphorical / like literal sense. And I've been really working with play in this sense of letting go, not having to be perfect, because definitely when I was younger, because of a lot of stress at home, my mom just projected a lot of it onto me, and it turned into like this just terrible perfectionism thing. So part of my inner child healing is letting myself play, and play requires you to make mistakes, even to the point where mistakes don't even really exist. You're just living and learning. And that for me is hella hard and weird, because my inner child, I feel like I never even got to do that. Like, people as an adult are like, oh my God, you're so serious, like you're so tense, you're so loose. I'm like, well, it is because, like, people, you guys need to watch when you comment on people, like, aspects of people's personality or behavior out loud, because sometimes they're like related to trauma and you just like don't know. Anyway, but for real, like, I feel like as an adult, that manifested into me just being so fucking tense. And sometimes I'm way better. I'm kind of speaking about myself like maybe 3-4 years ago. I felt like I was so tense. Like, now I started painting, you guys. I'm definitely nowhere near as intricate or good as my dad, but I've started painting. I don't think I could have honestly let myself paint the way I'm painting a couple years ago. Yeah, I'm letting my inner child, I'm letting her let loose. We're painting. We're doing the jobs that I wanted to do in high school, low key. Like, we're wearing the clothes that we finally want. We're exploring. We're not judging ourselves. Like, I'm just literally letting myself live in acceptance and live in the moment. When I was a little kid, I could never be in the moment. I always had to be like 3 steps ahead and then simultaneously referencing the past. to make sure that, like, you know, things were going to be okay for me and that I was going to be safe. But I definitely carried that into the future. Into now. Like, I definitely have moments where I'm just like, oh my God, you know, it's anxiety. It's anxiety. It's, what's that word? I almost said hypertension. It's not hyper arousal. Hyper alert, hyper awareness. I don't know, but it's just like, you know, you're on high alert. There we go. Whatever. You're just on high alert. And so when you're constantly on high alert, but it wasn't high alert for me, it was kind of high alert on other people. And so I'm letting my inner, there's this integration there's coming to that's happening. There's this space, like, sorry if this isn't making any sense, you guys, because I'm literally processing as I'm talking, but there's this space in my development of self, right? So I feel like, and I'm kind of noticing this with my friends, and I'm not victimizing myself or any way. It's like literally just something I'm noticing. I'm noticing that my friends have this sense of self and sense of self-worth that I kind of don't have. I feel like I missed out on this development where you learn that, like, you're important. And this is coming from even friends that struggle with people pleasing like me, and some friends that even we have the same issues. I notice that when it comes to self-worth and their awareness of themselves and maybe like how much they know themselves on this level that, like, I'm very unfamiliar with. And I think due to me also being like I think I'm like a mega empath, you guys. Like, I'm gonna be going like deeper into it, but I feel like also on top of that being an empath, because some people argue like, are you really an empath, or is it due to are you just like traumatized? And I'm like, bitch, it's both. Like, I was born an empath, then I got traumatized, and then I heightened, and like it became just magnified, right? And so like when I'm talking to my friends, I'm just like kind of noticing like, you seem to have spent like a little more time with yourself, or had your sense of self validated by your parent a little more, even throughout the trauma that you've experienced. Like, I really need to do some research on it, because I also do, well, no, that, I was going to say my mom has borderline, but the people that I'm referencing, like, their parents suffer from mental illness too. So anyway, it might just be like a personal me thing. So I'm just going too deep into it probably. But my point is that I abandoned myself at a very early age. And I had been running from that little girl that I left for a very long time, because I feel shame, I'm scared, I'm depressed to confront this part of myself, because there are so many layers. Like, the first layer is I feel so much shame for my inner child. I feel shame that I went through the things that I went through, because when I was going through them, I didn't have anybody really backing me. I had maybe some friends that sometimes understood what I was going through and tried their best to support me, but I had no adult around me saying like, hey, Kiana, like, this going on at home isn't your fault. Like, don't internalize it, okay? Like, you know, this is actually happening because of this and this. I had no one explaining anything to me, so the reasonable answer for me was myself. Like, I personalized my environment to like the 10th degree. Like, it was really crazy. And so and I'm literally picturing, like, as I'm talking to you guys, I'm seeing, literally, I'm like 7 or 8 years old, my eyes are huge, I'm like very tiny, but I'm like long, like I was like just kind of like a tall child, and I just kind of look kind of lost. I kind of look a little hollow. I don't know if that makes sense, but my eyes are just kind of blank, and I was scared to confront that little girl because she was very confused, and there's a lot of things that I needed to, that now as an adult I understand, but I felt my inner child was still running on this narrative where it's like everything's my fault, right? And I'm like, well, no, like we've actually like learned like so much, and things aren't like that anymore. And Joy really helped me realize that I needed to literally talk to my inner child, like talk to myself. I have not been doing that. I recognize that I have an inner child, like an aspect of myself. And Joy did confirm as well that the more trauma that you go through and the more abandoned or underdeveloped that part of yourself is, the more heightened it will feel. Because I was telling her, my inner child literally feels like a different part of me, like sometimes like part of my personality. And I know I don't have like multiple personality disorder, dissociative personality disorder, so I'm just like, what is that? And she's like, well, that's that aspect of self that is just hella underdeveloped, especially due to trauma. And I'm just like, well, goddamn, okay. And so that initial meeting of my inner child, my shadow self, and all these parts of myself that night, that dark night of the soul night. And I'm laughing just because like I freaked my mom the fuck out, like when I was going through my ego death. She was just like, what is going on? I was just angry. I didn't want her help with shit. I didn't want to talk to her about it. I was just in my room crying, so depressed, so sad, so empty. I just remember feeling like empty. I felt completely empty. And like I said, just so much shame because and that's the thing. When you heal and do any part of the healing process, there are repressed memories and feelings that come up that you have to work through. First of all, I'm a Pisces. Second, first of all, I'm a Pisces, okay? So any emotion that comes up for me is going to just be a play. It's going to be a full-blown production. So during my inner child healing, where I have all these feelings of like shame coming up, I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, what the literal fuck? Why am I feeling like so terrible about all this shit that happened to me? Like, and it was that narrative. I had to really let go of that narrative that came up of me first figuring out when I was 7 incorrectly, but coming to the conclusion that, oh, okay, this is my fault. Right. Got it. And I like kind of locked into that and didn't let it go. And even, in this healing process, I'm currently living with my mom, and she's been like helping me because we've been able to talk about these things that have happened in the past. And she literally confirmed for me, like, oh yeah, there was definitely like an 8 to 10 year period where I was so stressed and wanted everything to be perfect, and it was completely unreasonable and irrational. And I'm like, wait, you're admitting that was irrational? I just thought I was like a fucked up lazy kid this whole time. And I'm just like, oh my God. So the first layer is shame. I had just so much internalized shame, thinking, okay, because I'm not remembering my chores, which I'm now relating, realizing that is related to like ADHD symptoms that I have, that I didn't even know that I could have ADHD because I wasn't spending enough time with myself. Okay, anyway, and all these little fights that we would get, not little, these huge ass fights that we'd get into every day were due to things that like actually weren't my fault. But I didn't know that. I'm in survival mode. I'm trying to like live to the next day. These screaming matches that me and my mom had, I mean, like, like, the bottom line is like, I don't think my mom would she wouldn't kick me out, but they'd be really scary where I wouldn't really know. It was like it felt life threatening. Was it? No, not literally, but to the point like where I was triggered enough where I was like, okay, I will literally do whatever you want, or like whatever narrative will make this stop is like fine by me. And if that's like this being my fault, and that could just continued. So that was the first layer. And Joy really helped me realize that the narrative that my inner child is telling, I need to actually listen to it. That's another thing. Like, my inner child is like, I'm scared. I feel like everything's my fault. And I'm like, yeah, shut the fuck up, you little bitch. And I'm like, okay, that's just like not, like, that's my inner critic hitting myself with shit. That's like a whole ton of things happening there. But I'm like, oh my God, I can't, like, I'm jumping ahead so many steps. First, I'm going, well, that's not what's happening. Why do you think that's what's happening? Blah, 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 blah. You think everything's your fault and everything, blah, blah. So it's like, first I have to accept that my inner child is very scared. Inside, I'm scared. Anxious attachment, underneath, scared, fear. I'm terrified. Like, that's what's actually going on here. We're scared. Like, we're collectively scared. And I think this is the first time I'm like accepting that and saying that out loud. But yeah, little Kiana was scared. And I did a lot of things to surf on the surface to try to soothe that fear. But you know, my inner child wants somebody to take care of. Little Kiana wanted and needed to be taken care of. Physically, I was okay, you know? Emotionally, there were a lot of things that my inner child was like, I need this, this, and this, and this, and this. And for a long time, I was kind of telling myself, oh, okay, we don't need that. Like, you just didn't get it, so whatever. Like, you didn't give love and affection, okay? Like, you didn't get words of affirmation like that, okay? Like, it's just, like, whatever, all right? Like, and then, and so, following Joy's advice, I'm like, oh, shit, I actually need to say, to little Kiana, I need to say, damn, you know, I'm so sorry, you're right. We really should have had someone have our back. All that shit was like hella fucked up. And you're right. An adult should have been there. I'm so sorry that we didn't have an adult around us to stand up for us like that. And we can feel sad about that for a little bit. And then I can tell my inner child in the next step that, you know, things were like that then. That really sucked. But now I want to let you know that we're able to do like this and this and this for ourselves. And, you know, hey, maybe we don't have these exact people in our lives that we want. But, you know, we also have these people that are very supportive and cool too. And we have to remember them. You know, like, I really have to walk and talk myself through this inner child journey. It's just so, I just like barely scratched the surface, and I was like, okay, inner child, you're inside, you're sad, got it. And it's like, no, it's so deep, especially when you have childhood trauma that has made you, you know, abandon yourself for survival. At that point, it's they're, you know, peeling back the layers, and it's literally like an onion, because every layer, it's just a play, you guys. The drama, the crying. I'm trying not to make fun of myself, but like it is really intense. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I do have a lot of repressed, like, there's a lot of repressed emotions and feelings there. There's a lot of feelings that, okay, okay, so this is what I want to talk about. So the next layer of my inner child healing is, so the first layer was working through shame, right? Like, all this shame I had for myself, like, just so rude to myself. So then the second layer was anger. And this is so funny, because I had prided myself in so long in not being an angry person. I see my mom, who has, like, you know, my mom was diagnosed bipolar and then BPD, and so she would have these, she would definitely have a very extreme, like, loud outburst, like, to want to, like if the notch goes to 100, she's going to 100, you know, type of episodes. And I think that really subconsciously left a mark on me, to the point where I was like, I could just, in my head, I was like, okay, that's anger and that's bad because it's abusive. So I can never express anger. I can never express that I just didn't see anger expressed in a healthy way, or even disappointment expressed in a healthy way. So I just thought I couldn't express, I just thought it was a bad emotion to have. And so, especially with people pleasing and the things that I was doing, I was just repressing so much of what I was feeling. And I was just gaslighting myself to the extreme. Like, and almost any time I felt any type of discomfort or this gut reaction for myself of like, you know, that wasn't cool, or, you know, I'm being disrespected in some way, I would easily dismiss it because I was like, well, that's a rock the boat emotion, and we're not gonna rock the boat because, you know, rocking the boat is it just looked abusive to me. That's the only time I've really seen, you know, I just hadn't seen it expressed in a healthy way, you guys, okay? So, I remember when I first started, so like after the shame, and I'm like, yeah, you know, and I started kind of sitting with myself a little. I wasn't talking to myself quite like Joy has recently taught me to do, but I sat with myself a little bit, and people around me were very validating, like, yeah, girl, you know, that shit you went through back in the day, like that so wasn't it. It was not your fault. I'm so sorry. You have a right to be upset. Because they would kind of hear it in my voice. Because I'd be like, yeah, and this and this and this, and yeah, and I'm like, I feel kind of upset, and they're like, well, you should, and I'm like, okay, like I really needed permission to be mad. And so when I really started tapping into that and realizing that I had a right to be upset, it was kind of like game over. It was kind of like, oh fucking shit. And I was just, there was this period where I was just angry all the time. Oh my God, my poor mother. Yeah, I was just angry all the time, for a minute. And I just did not know what to do with the anger. Like it was kind of, the hot mess. I'm not gonna lie. But at the same time, y'all, I had never been angry before. Like, this is my first time being angry. And it was kind of like, this shit is kind of cool. Like, I'm not lying. Like, I had never let myself in real time express anger or disappointment to people. I usually hold it in. I usually freeze. So I don't even realize what the fuck is going on until like 2 weeks later. Like, I don't know, like it usually doesn't process in that way. So I'm not used to being on point when it comes to, I'm just not used to being on point when it comes to processing difficult emotions. And difficult emotions or uncomfortable emotions for me are emotions that could possibly make the other person uncomfortable. So disappointment, anger, frustration, even like suggesting something different than what somebody else said, like that can just make me go like, oh, is this okay? Like, maybe, probably not. Oh, okay, it's fine, I'm just gonna agree, whatever. And I do it, so I wasn't even realizing how it was so subconscious. Like, I didn't even realize I was doing it. And I'm realizing that anger really does tie into self-worth, because I was repressing and imploding, if you will. I was turning and it goes back into how I just personalize the environment around me. I'm so used to personalizing that when I would feel discomfort towards somebody else or towards a situation, or angry, or start to feel these uncomfortable situations, I would just immediately go, well, no, it has to be me because I have this much power over people's emotions. Like, I don't know, guys. Like, it was literally like, well, no, the reason why I'm upset must be because of my fault, not because of that other person. So da 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 da. And I would just like rationalize it so fast and just make it okay in a second. But then like I would retell the story to somebody else, and sometimes people would be like, I would have been actually really upset. And I'd be like, huh? Like, what do you mean? And they're like, oh, like, you know, you're better than me, I would have been so mad. And I'm like, you would have been mad. Like, you're better. Like, what do you mean? You're like, kind of like, huh? Or in my head, I'd kind of say like, well, I was mad, but I don't know. I'd be like, I am mad. Like, isn't that enough? But it'd be like, yeah, you're mad, but you didn't say enough, or you didn't stand up for yourself, or something. So I'm really learning that it has to tie into self-worth, because low key, if I don't even see myself, what is there to be angry about? Like, for real, if I don't recognize my own value or my own self-worth, when people are treating me bad, what is there to be upset about? Like, if I have this narrative inside to my inner child that I deserve what's happening to me, and that things are my fault just because they are, and that, you know, my needs are important because my environment says so. If I like already have this, you know, this narrative inside, then when people treat me poorly, I have like no range whatsoever to even be upset. I literally, I'm not sure, you guys. Like, I I was gonna say I didn't care about myself, but that's not true. It's not that I didn't care about myself. Like, I passively didn't care about myself, but really it was like I did not know my self-worth. I'm being so honest. I had abandoned myself for so long. I had been emotionally abused from a very young age, and to survive, I was like, okay, I need to disconnect from this part of myself that needs these needs. I need to just cut that shit off. And now it's like I'm realizing that I can help the world, and I can be nice in a different way. I can tend to myself. I can put myself first, fill my own cup, do my to-do list, make sure my money's straight, feed myself in the morning, make sure my phone's charged, you know, like, do my shit. And then give a fuck. Like, I don't have to stress and go into like this crazy cycle of just, because honestly, when I finally had that dark night of the soul moment where I just stopped, and like it was like total ego death. I would track it. I think it was like a 2 to 3 week full period of the separation of my ego and my essence. I think that was like a full 2 weeks. And I remember, like, sorry, I just like totally lost my train of thought. This is so deep. But what was I talking about? Okay, sense of self-worth, ego death. What do I remember? We're talking about anger. Boop, 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 boop. Dark night of the soul. 2 weeks. Sorry, guys, my memory is like terrible. But coming back to yourself, realizing yourself, I'm just like tracking where I was saying, realizing your sense of self, inner child healing. Yeah, that dark night of the soul moment was really crazy. Yeah, I was just there was nothing to really give a fuck about. Like, be mad at what? There's nothing, you know. And now I'm really just seeing that, like, okay, I really need to put myself first and make sure that I'm okay before I don't have to do this outer focus thing. I'm just flipping it around. It's not that I'm like not important anymore. I am important in just a different way. And other people are still important in a different way. It's not that like I don't have to give a fuck about anybody anymore. So it's like I had to try to integrate this now, because I went from one extreme, and then I don't want to go to the other extreme where I just like don't give a fuck about anybody, and now I'm like a hard ass bitch. And you know, like, I don't want to be that either. I want to be in the middle where I'm integrating all these parts of myself, you know, as I'm healing and accepting these emotions. And sometimes it's embarrassing because these emotions that I'm working through, sometimes they're like very like primary emotions. I'm like, didn't I learn about anger, like happy, angry, sad, like in kindergarten? Like, what the fuck? Like, I was almost like, why am I having an issue with this? Like, this is really weird, because it wasn't that. Because at first I was like, oh my God, I just never get angry. Like, this is great. I'm just like a perfect person that never gets angry. Nothing ever upsets me. I never rock the boat. And then I was like, oh shit, it's not that you just never get angry. You like literally don't know how to get angry, or you don't know how to express it, or you're not processing it well. Like, literally my ego was just like, I'm the best non-angry person. I'm the most peaceful person. Like... But deep down, it's like, no, bitch, you're just not processing shit correctly. And you're so caught up in this label of being nice that you're sacrificing I was literally sacrificing my soul for people. I'm not exaggerating. That's a soul sacrifice when you... Whatever. That's a soul sacrifice when that's happening. Parts of you, you're giving a little part of yourself away. Especially depending on how long you do it for. And I remember what I was saying. Wow, that train went back on that track. Sorry, I just connected the thought that I lost a while ago. But I was gonna say is that what I realized is that during my Dark Night of the Soul process, like when I finally stopped people pleasing, stopped outer focusing, stopped going over these people's houses, like completely slowed down, started really looking at myself like, wait, my needs are kind of important. I realized I was so tired, you guys. I was exhausted. I was so exhausted from overgiving. Like, it was so stressful. I was so tired. I didn't even know I was that tired. I was tired. Like, I was exhausted from doing that. I didn't even realize it was that tiring. I didn't even know I was uncomfortable. I had no baseline for comfort in my own body. Isn't that weird? I really didn't. So a lot of the like, stand up for yourself, take care of yourself, love yourself, self. I'm like, if your sense of self is fucked up, every time you say the word yourself, people won't know what you're talking about. Because that was kind of me. Anytime when someone's like, take care of yourself, love yourself, yourself, I was like, self? Like, it was like, I'm not even processing what you're saying. Like, I barely have a sense of self. What do you mean take care of, like, it was so foreign. When people would say it, it would literally sound like they were speaking a foreign language. And I really want that to be taken more into account of people who go through trauma, because sometimes people on the outside are like, you guys are stupid. Like, why don't you get it? It's like, bitch, my brain is literally wired different. And I was brought up different. My blueprint is different. Like, sometimes, like, and it, I could go off. I could go off, but it's really true. Like, I had no sense of self. So it's like, love yourself. Like, what the fuck? And so I'm literally going back to the basics, I feel, with this inner child healing of like, who is Kiana? Like, hi, Kiana. Like, it's literally feeling like day one at school where you write your name tag and like what you did over the sun. Like, it's awkward, but it's necessary. And, all the emotions that come up, and I'm not complaining at all. Like, this journey has definitely been worth it. The fact that I can sit alone and be with myself and hang out with myself. Like, there was a moment where I was like, can I ever do that? And I would envy people that could just like be with themselves and hang out by themselves. I'd be like, that's so admirable. Like, where'd you get that skill? Like, so I am proud. I'm finally listening to my inner child, not, really releasing that shame, because I'm seeing a lot of people in my life who have repressed a lot of their emotions, and I get why, but it's just so heavy to carry. It really is. And I've carried so much of people's shit for so long. I am ready to and that's another thing. I feel like when you're carrying everybody else's shit, you can never truly put yours down. So it's like, let me put y'all's down, pick up mine, work through mine, have none of mine, and then we can, then let's like go down the line, you know? And honestly, that's just been my narrative my whole life, outer focused. And then the people around me, a lot of these people that I've let go, the funny thing is like towards the end of the relationship, there's usually like not a crazy blowout, but they usually like freak out in some way. And at the end, it's usually like, me. What about me? But me, Kiana. Me, Kiana. Me. And I'm just staring at them like, you're literally like this. You're just a reflection of like what I was into at the moment. Like literally how I was looking at myself. This person that's popping off right now because I put up a boundary or I said no or I just shifted, and they're just talking about themselves at the end of the day. That's just who it was about and from the beginning. You feel? But I'm letting my inner child, I'm letting little Kiana know that you can be upset, baby girl. You can be sad. That shouldn't have happened. Those people shouldn't have said that. So and so should have stood up for you. And I would like you to know that we have more resources now in our brain and in the world where we can make things happen and make ourselves a little more safe and operate in a different way where we don't have to be as scared. You know, that's what I would tell myself. That's what I would tell little Kiana. Inner child healing, y'all. How do you talk to yourselves? Hey, y'all, it's Dark Sugar Podcast coming to you fresh out the packet with everything black. Dark sugar.